Whether sculpting, beadworking, or painting, Brooklyn-based artist Jeffrey Gibson is a master of color, telling the story of his Native American heritage through art. We joined Gibson in his studio, where he shared the story of how he first became an artist. Take a look.
Growing up as a foreigner is something that I think about a lot now. You know, when you're a foreigner, you don't entirely understand what you're looking at or what you're hearing all the time. So you have this kind of subjective comprehension of the world around you that is an estimated guess. I think about that a lot in terms of how I use materials, because I use a lot of materials that I think many people may not know the context that I'm drawing them from, or what the culture is or the history is. So my mother's family lives in Oklahoma. My father's family lives in Mississippi. And those Choctaw and Cherokee cultures are extremely different. So when I would go there, it would be to visit my family. I never wanted to observe my family. You want to be a participant in your family. So we don't look at each other and think, oh, that's Native American. Then I began thinking, what was it about the quilts that Grandma made? Or what was it about the jewelry that she wore? Or the dresses that she made? What did the song mean that she would sing? And then it becomes something culturally specific, I suppose. But otherwise, it's just kind of inherently familial. It really started from a place of like, I want to take part in all of these things. I want to know how to bead. And then that starts off pattern, it starts off design, it starts off color choices. It starts off the challenge of what you can actually do with beads. I wanted to make found object work. And over the course of time, sometimes they are mashed together. I'm interested in exploring the transformative nature of materials and how the language can shift from a beaded triangle to a painted triangle to a woven triangle, and what those three different versions of a triangle mean. There was this period of club music that was the transition of analog music into digital. And it was the sampling and the turntables where people could sample music that was really had an impression on me. So this kind of repetitive nature of repeating and picking something from one context and sticking it into another one and making something new. I can spend the time in my studio mashing up, remixing, remaking, taking apart, reconstructing. And I can invite other people to take part in that with me. I think it's important to be transparent about the process. We acknowledge the assistance all the time, as much as we can. If it was just me making, for instance, a punching bag, we would be seeing one a year. The lines between craft and what's historically been thought of as fine art, the decorative, embellishment, all of those things, in this environment are equalized. If you look at powwow garments, they're so loud and colorful. With that as my inspiration, in many ways, there was no limit to the combinations of colors. It's more thinking about what the color does in combination with each other. So it's either really kind of pop or electric or reflective or optic. I do have an attraction between the idea of minimalism and how minimalism leads towards like maximal density. I used to think that minimalism was about maintaining this quiet, silent place, like this void unfilled with things. And now I realize that the removal of information is in an effort to actually be able to see how much is present in a very small space or in a very limited palette. The idea is to, like, say, slow down the color red and understand how many shades of red there are. Slow down the color blue, understand how many shades of blue, tones of blue. And then, of course, it opens right back up into including every single color. My training is as an entirely process-based abstract artist. But the text was always meant to name this entirely subjective language of abstraction. And at some point, when the audience wasn't able to get the content that I felt I was putting into the abstraction, I decided to just start putting the text directly on it. Most of the titles, for instance, come from appropriated lyrics. And then it just kind of hit. There was something about the understanding that these words describe what you're looking at. Became a really big part of the work for me. People who were looking at my work at the time would always question, well, how does this relate to who you are? You know, how does this relate to you as a Native American person, as a gay person? Is this subjectivity somehow representative of that experience? And it seemed no matter how hard I would say, no, it's not, it almost compounded more for people to look for connections in the work. And at some point, I decided to own the words Native American, to own the words gay, and not give them any kind of power over determining who I am. But I was fine with the work being described in that way, because it is true. This is my experience, and in the 20th century at that time, and even today, that's very much how we describe each other. I acknowledge that we're all very, very layered, complicated people. In our contemporary world, we don't always have the opportunity to explore that or to share that with each other, but it's what you can do in art.